If there's someone who is always at the wrong place at the wrong time, it is Paula. Wherever she goes, she ends up with a dead body, and instead of solving the problem she is in, she ends up digging her grave a little deeper. In the previous episode, Paula thought she could get some help from Trevor's friend, Skye, but that backfired. Skye is dead, thanks to Dennis, who is determined to wrap up the Trevor chapter, and he can't achieve that goal until he gets hold of Paula and ties up that last loose end. In episode 6 of Maximum Pleasure Guaranteed, Paula is still trying her best to keep it together. From organizing a pizza party for the soccer club at Hazel's school to teaming up with Rudy and Jerry to find out Ash's location and solve the murder mystery, Paula's goal in life is simple. She wants to be there for Hazel, and to do that, she has to clean up the ugly mess she is in. I think Paula suffers from a mix of good and bad luck. She finds herself in the worst possible situation, yet somehow she survives. This time, a private investigator indirectly saved her life. Dennis now has 2 loose ends to tie off. One is Paula, and the other is Ash. Since the cops already know about Paula, he decides to deal with her before eventually tracking down Ash. On the day of the soccer party, Dennis sneaks into Paula's apartment and waits for her to show up. She was out buying party essentials while discussing their next move to find the killer with Rudy and Jerry. She is hopeful that if she organizes a fun party, the parents will write the compelling recommendation letters that will help her win the custody battle. At the end of the day, her priority is Hazel, and to ensure that she is not dragged to Boise, Idaho, Paula has to put up a good fight. Mallory is ruthless. She is determined to move to Boise with Carl and Hazel immediately, and she has hired a private investigator to get the dirt on Paula. Remember the man we saw taking pictures of Paula at the very end of the last episode? He is Frank Budkins, a private investigator. Carl is surprised to find out that Mallory has hired a private investigator. As much as he wants to win the case, he is afraid to play dirty with Paula. Mallory doesn't care. She believes someone has to take radical steps to get things done, and she doesn't mind being that person in their relationship. The PI states that after tracking Paula for a couple of days, he has come to the conclusion that she doesn't drink or do drugs, but it looks like she has a boyfriend. As it turns out, when Dennis sneaked into Paula's apartment, had a couple of squishy fruits from her fridge, and lazed around, the PI had been watching him. Well, Dennis didn't know about the situation, but he eventually noticed a man with a camera from the window, and that was when he figured he had to leave and plan Paula's murder some other day. The PI assumes Dennis is Paula's boyfriend. This is hilarious. Well, how else can you explain a man entering your apartment when you're not there? One won't immediately assume that the man is a murderer waiting for the victim to come home. Frank suggests that they use this angle to their advantage. Mallory and Carl can easily win the case if they can prove that Paula is in a relationship with a man who has keys to her apartment, which is a risky move considering her daughter stays with her, and the man could pose a danger someday. Carl isn't comfortable with the direction the custody battle is heading in. He knows the kind of trouble Paula is in, and it looks like he genuinely feels bad for her and hopes that for once she makes the right choices in life. He stops by Paula's place during the soccer party and tells her about the PI they've hired. He wonders why she hasn't mentioned her boyfriend, and Paula doesn't know how to react. She doesn't have a boyfriend, but according to Carl's PI, a man was in her apartment when she was not home, which only means one thing. The murderer knows her location, he knows all about her life, whereas she has no idea who he is, and she can already sense that death is looming around the corner for her. She obviously can't explain her situation to Carl. While he knows about Trevor's murder, he has no idea that a murderer is after Paula, and given how Carl can use the situation against her, Paula chooses to keep the details from him. Meanwhile, Dennis figures that if he has to get rid of Paula, he also has to deal with the PI. So he does the inevitable, stabbing the PI in his head and disposing of his body. Frank thought he was about to expose a secret relationship, whereas he was a witness to a murderer's secret operation. The picture Frank has taken can be important evidence in Trevor's murder case. It's a slightly blurry photograph, but I think if one has seen Dennis, they can testify that the man in the picture is probably him. Did Paula kill Dennis? Paula is petrified. She now knows that the killer is probably lurking around the corner waiting to kill her, and she finds the anticipation too hard to deal with. She can't have an outburst because she can't let Hazel see her at her lowest, but I'm sure all Paula wanted to do was scream her lungs out. But she has to hold it together and be a responsible mother. She asks Hazel to stay the night with one of her friends, and her daughter happily agrees. She can't put her little one's life in danger. Paula's plan is to lock her apartment up and probably wait for the worst with a knife in her hand. But things take a turn when one of the girls' mothers asks Paula to get anti-allergy meds for her daughter. She has no choice but to step out, and she isn't happy about it. Paula watches her back, and even the slightest unexpected sounds scare her to the core. Paula grabs the medication, along with a few essentials, and on her way home. She notices an open car trunk and thinks it is odd, and before she can fathom what is going on, Dennis strikes her. She attempts to stop him, but he is incredibly strong and he knocks her out. He loads her body into the trunk of his car and takes her to a remote spot. At the very end of Maximum Pleasure Guaranteed episode 6, when Dennis opens the trunk of the car with a sharp knife in one hand, ready to finally put an end to the only witness to Trevor's murder, Paula surprises him with a gun in her hand. In the previous episode, Paula sold Skye's necklace and got a gun for herself. She figured things were about to get dangerous, and she needed a gun more than she needed cash. Well, to think of it, if Paula hadn't met Sky, then she wouldn't have grabbed the studded necklace and sold it off for a gun, which ultimately came in handy. Ultimately, her bad decisions somehow add up and make sense. Without a second thought, Paula pulls the trigger and shoots Dennis right in the center of his forehead. And that's the end of the malicious murderer. Paula had no choice but to pull the trigger, and she did it for survival. But the Portland trauma is going to make it impossible for Paula to not panic. The cops already suspect her, and maybe she'll be too afraid to contact Detective Gomez because she is not yet sure if she can prove her innocence. Although the detective believes that Paula is not the killer, will she really believe it's a coincidence when she discovers that Paula was present at another murder scene? Paula can claim self-defense, but will anyone believe her? Maybe a little digging into Dennis' past will bring the truth to light, but considering we still have about 4 episodes to go, I don't think the puzzle will be solved so soon. Also, Dennis is a contract killer and he works for someone, or perhaps a company, and they won't ever let his true identity be revealed. If the cops find his body, Dennis' associates might find themselves in trouble, and they will do everything in their power to ensure that the case is closed. In this episode, Rudy and Jerry tracked down the location of Jerry's AirPods, and they found the burner phone that Ash had used to contact Dennis. It was lying in Ash's car, and they stole it after she parked the car outside a supermarket. Now that Rudy and Jerry have the killer's phone number, they can use it to gather information on Dennis. Jerry obviously has an ulterior motive. She is not helping Paula because she cares. This is just a great story that she knows will impress her editor, and she will finally publish a piece she will be proud of. So, playing detective is her only way to stay in the loop with Paula. And even though she has a motive, right now she and Rudy are the only people Paula has on her side. So I think a sensational story in exchange for dealing with a contract killer is a pretty good deal. Although such a situation calls for transparency. After all, it's Paula's story.